This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
And today we are attacking the third POV in Winter's Heart and Chapter 3, A Fan of Colors from Crossroads of Twilight. Not in that order.
The other order.
There is only one other, yes. There's two items. So
your other left.
Yeah. Chapter 3, A Fan of Colors. And our symbol is the Adom. I think just because you're dealing with the threat of putting Adom on the Aes Sedai from the Damane. And
you have a Suldom saying, I think we're done with the Adom now. Mm-hmm. Which makes the other two look at her like, what? Mm-hmm. But it's an absolute truth. Like, that's absolutely, all three of them are very much done with the Adom. And she's the first to realize that.
Right. And the Fan of Colors clearly refers to, like, the last paragraph, right?
Yes.
Mat did not know whether to curse or weep. With the soldiers gone and Ebou Dar about to be left in his dust, there seemed no reason for the dice. There never was a bloody reason he could see until it was too late. Whatever was coming might lie days in the future, or only an hour, but he had never been able to figure it out ahead of time. The only certainties were that something important, or dire, was to happen, and that he would not be able to avoid it. Sometimes, like that night in the gate, he did not understand why the dice had been tumbling even after they stopped. All he really knew for sure was that however much the dice made him twitch like a goat with itch, once they started, he did not want them to stop, ever. But they did. Sooner or later, they always did. "Are you all right, Matt?" Olver said. "Those Seanchan can't catch us." He attempted gruff conviction, but a hint of question hung in his voice. Abruptly, Matt realized he had been staring at nothing. Eginin frowned at him while fiddling absent-mindedly with her wig, plainly angry that he was ignoring her. Doman's eyes had a studious look. If he was not deciding whether to be upset on Eginin's behalf, Matt would eat his cap. Even Thera was peeking at him past the tent's entry flap, and she always tried to keep out of Eginin's sight. He could not explain. Only a man with porridge for brains would believe he got warnings from hearing dice no one could see. Or maybe a man marked by the Power, or the Dark One. He was not anxious to have any of those things suspected about him, and it might be that night at the gate all over again. No, this was not a secret he cared to reveal. It would do no good anyway. I actually don't think I had to read that last paragraph, but I got into it and went. I was like, oh, well, I'm stuck in it now. I'm reading it till the end.
No, that was great. That was great. Yeah, I loved the line about a man with porridge for brains believing he gets warnings from dice, because he doesn't believe any of those alternatives. Like, clearly he's not a man with porridge for brains, and he also doesn't believe that it has to do with the Power, and he's pretty sure it doesn't have to do with the Dark One. He just has it.
He knows it has to do with being Ta'veren, and yet he constantly denies it, right? He knows that's a Ta'veren thing, right? Like,
he doesn't even list it here. It's so glaringly obvious.
Right. Like, that's the one thing he leaves out, is that the one thing that it is, which is Ta'veren. So, despite him denying it explicitly, I would almost say that whenever he denies, it's not, I've never seen Ta'veren in me. It's like, but I have seen luck.
Swirling around what he's talking about.
Exactly. So, yeah. A lot of Jordan liking his characters to be hypocrites.
He's really
especially Matt and Nynaeve.
Yeah. It's this idea of people that he remembers from home is lovable hypocrites.
So they're on the move. They're basically out of the city with the circus.
The circus is packing up. We're picking up from where the last chapter left off, which was with Matt giving Luca the go-ahead to get everyone moving. Luca has started to get everyone moving, and we are now rejoining our party in the middle of the hustle and bustle of the circus starting to get going for the day.
And so this is sort of settling into the second circus plot line, where we have Matt trying to seduce Tuon while Tuon tries to seduce Matt, while they're trying to get power over each other, all while he's pretending to be engaged to Eginin. And Tuon and Selucia are servants that need to be in prison so they don't warn the mysterious whoever about Matt and Eginin's, secret. And meanwhile, Bail Domon is in the background going, what the fuck? I mean, so it's just this big, long plot line where it's essentially Matt, and it's all about Matt and Tuon's relationship. And I do think it's like Jordan heard someone saying, oh, you can't write a relationship, evolving. And he's like, fine, watch me. It's going to be the weirdest relationship you've ever seen, based between the two oddest people you've ever seen. But I'm going to show a courtship on a Robert Jordan level of fucked upness.
Yeah. That does sound about right for headcanon. Yeah, because this really is the beginning of the courtship, right? There's a very long and intricate courtship between Matt and Tuon that really has only been in its preamble up until this point. But this is the chapter where, like, they both agree, let's step onto this dance floor and do this weird ass dance together.
And there's a couple of very key questions that we'll get to.
Oh, yes, including one that I was sure had been asked already. And I feel like I have egg on my face about that.
Fair enough.
So there's this quote here in the next paragraph where he's reassuring Olver about how they're going to be fine. And he says this thing that he means just as like an offhanded remark to like talk to the other people. But this is the exact kind of quote that Olver, when he's an adventurer, is going to say, my dad, Matt, used to say,
right.
Remember, you can find a way out of any difficulty if you keep your eyes and wits sharp. But if you don't, you'll trip over your own feet. Matt just throws this out there like some pithy little coded thing. Olver is going to take that through so many adventures. He's going to take that to his grave. It's going to be on his gravestone. Everyone's going to know him for saying that about his dad, Matt. Well,
and I kind of imagine Matt as having all of these accumulated sayings. You know how old men always have weird old sayings that are always kind of like, oh, why don't you wipers on a goat's butt or whatever,
Yeah.
So all that stuff adds up. And Matt has the memories of lots and lots of old men in his head, right? And so he's got the accumulated linear wisdom of generations is sort of what I imagine, that he's got all of these like weird sayings that he's constantly popping off. Everyone's going like, I've never heard that one before, but yeah, it makes sense.
Totally.
So I imagine tons of those coming out of Matt all the time. Some of them in the old tongue.
Yeah. Pithy wisdom, weirdly outdated misogyny, like racism towards countries that don't even exist anymore. It's a mixed bag.
That makes you wonder, like, Matt has the memories of people on all sides of all sorts of battles. And you're like, so basically, like, how many Confederate generals do you have in your head?
Makes you wonder.
That's, anyway. He is trying to take care of, Olver, making sure he's got his coat on and make sure he doesn't get cold.
Because he's his dad.
He's his dad, basically. But
Matt dad.
At the same time, this like constant, where is he learning all his behaviors from? It's from his dad.
Yeah, like no one's looking out for him. It's like everyone's looking out for him.
Well, everyone's trying to counteract the bad influence that Matt is on him, really.
Matt, is your coat warm enough for this weather? Really?
You who like to just sleep under a wagon occasionally, like it's no big deal?
Yeah, weirdo.
Disagreement between Egina and Matt continues from the last chapter, and he just is like, no, you never hired me. She's like, because that's her whole thing. Remember back she like sent Bail Domon to hire Matt, and Matt was like, no, I'm good. And Egina keeps insisting that like, and he's like, no, how about I rescue you because you're pretty much screwed. And Egina's like, well, I hired you to do that. And he's like, no, I rescue you. You do what I say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the very least, don't think that I'm going to obey you. Like, you do you, but I'm going to do me. At the least. Yeah, and it's nice that he kind of puts his foot down, because I feel like this is the end of that debate. It's been going for 3 chapters. Like, can we stop now? And I think it's done.
I think one of the things he does to intimidate her is say, hey, I'm going to go see Tuon now. And that drives her off because she's like terrified of the Daughter of the Nine Moons. And the fact that he calls her Tuon casually, like he's a personal friend. And he does not get how serious of an insult / claim of personal relationship that is. Right? Between his claim that she's his wife and the calling him a personal name. Remember, there's a whole scene in Knife of Dreams where Perrin is trying to get the fork root.
Oh, yeah, and he named Suroth.
And he names Suroth by her name. And it's like, she believes that he's an intimate, and so is all of a sudden like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, the fact that you'll say her name, it's all yours, right? And so the fact that Matt is doing that with Tuon is basically the same thing. It's like you were an intimate, you were you're on the in crowd of this person.
Except that Egeanin knows intellectually that none of that is true. It's just this like subconscious thing with her, because like she knows for a fact that none of that's true, but it doesn't matter.
Does she though? Because he did claim he was his wife, and she's acting very weirdly accommodating.
I don't think that that's why she's backing off. I think she's backing off because she doesn't want to deal with Tuon, and she doesn't want to be in the splash zone when his insolence, that he absolutely knows his insolence, gets punished. I really feel like she's not actually in the same place as that random person that Perrin tricks. But I do think that it is working on her subconsciously, even though intellectually she knows better. Because she knows that Tuon doesn't know Matt, like from Adam, And
this is pre-Llewellyn, when she's like using the name, but it's not the assigned name yet.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's her alias, and then that's why Tuon tells her that it's permanent now. It's like, well, you've been using this as a temporary name, now it's your permanent name. But yes, for now it's still temporary.
I love Matt's excuse of like, why do I have to respect her? I stuffed her in rolled her up in a carpet and stuffed a rag in her mouth. That's like as disrespectful as you can get. If I can do that, I can call her by her name, I suppose.
Right. Which is like, yeah. And then when she refuses to call him by his name, it's like, oh yeah, no. All you are getting is your name. Like, absolutely not. You're not getting a single title. But yeah, it is definitely like, no, I feel like we've broken past the is it polite to use your name stage, but with the manhandling and kidnapping. Like,
and saying you're my wife. Like starting half of the marriage ceremony.
Yeah, first you're like wrestling in hand-to-hand combat, then you're realizing / saying who she is to you for all of the rest of your life. Like, yeah, the title thing is just so in the rearview at this point.
And for Tuon's POV, she's waiting for the prophecy to be fulfilled because he's already fulfilled a couple of parts of it. Right? Mm-hmm. He's got the fox that chases the ravens on his ring, and he's going to kidnap her and take her away. Right? So he's done both of those things.
Yeah, and then she gets the third one this chapter.
Yeah, yes, she does.
Just fill that triangle up.
And she gets the promise of the fourth to free her.
Yeah, she does. She does. And then she says, okay, this is a holding pattern I can work with.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the dice rolling in his head I always associated with Tuon, and that's why he knows that he's going to go see her. He's like, oh, like I wasn't planning on that, but actually I kind of was. And it's like, yeah, because the dice are so associated with Tuon and they're drumming. You need to go resolve the latest conundrum with her.
Oh, that's a good point. I thought he was just doing it to drive Egeanin away and be like, I'm going to go visit Tuon.
It's a both and thing. Yeah. He's like, wow, why did I think of that? I guess I know why I thought of that. It's like, yeah.
You should totally come with me. I'm going to see Egeanin. Come on, yeah. And Llewellyn / Egeanin's like, I'm out of here. Like, no way. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of that, like, manipulating her, but because then he walks around the entire circus trying to avoid going to actually see her. He goes every other place that he could possibly go in order to avoid actually seeing Tuon.
Yeah, it's funny. And Domon brings up a really good point here, which is that Matt is underestimating Tuon, and Matt's like, no, and Domon's like, How did she react when she got kidnapped in a strange country? She was chill as a cucumber. How tough do you have to be to not be upset in that situation? And Matt's like, huh. Oh.
Maybe I bit off more than I can chew.
Yeah. Domon's got more experience than Matt. Like, he knows what he's looking at. And Matt is over here just thinking how he doesn't really remember Domon very well, which I almost feel like is Jordan being like, do you remember Eye of the World, dear reader?
It was a long time ago. Longer for us than for him, for certain.
Oh, yeah. I'm basically at, then he gets to the wagon.
Yeah.
Which is described as being windowless and having 4 lamps and a stove running in it, and yet somehow they aren't all dead of CO2 poisoning.
They got a pipe stove that goes out the roof.
4 lamps? Have you ever been in a room with 1 candle?
I'm assuming it's just got enough, like, cracks and crevices that basically the wind blows right through it. And so there's no real issue with
But it's described as toasty.
Well,
I'm frustrated. Maybe they're that, but they're not supposed to be shitty wagons. Like,
right, the lack of windows surprised me. It did.
The lack of ventilation.
Like, what? Yeah. This feels, and he describes kicking like 4 clowns out of it, essentially. But these are like clowns that basically just drink all the time. And so I imagine they like it dark because they're hungover.
It's that camper van that just like all the windows are tinted in completely.
And there's just constantly smoke coming out of the sides of the roof. And it's not well sealed because they're hotboxing the shit out of it.
Yeah. There might also be like ventilation pipes that just come up to like help. Because candles take up so much oxygen. Like you need an exchange to bring in fresh air. But you're right. It's probably just old wood, and
I just don't think these things are that well built and that solidly put together. These are wagons. They're constantly bouncing, jostling. Your joints are loosening. I doubt that they're airtight in any way, shape, or form. And that's also probably why they're producing so much heat.
Yeah, they're not living in a modern manufactured home like I am.
No, they are not.
That's fair. But yeah, Matt basically is thinking, well, she's not going to exchange vows. I'm totally safe. And it's like he doesn't know that he's midway through the ceremony already. And yeah, he arrives at the wagon on that cheerful thought. And we check in with Harnan and Metwin because we got to bring some Red Arm characters back in. There's a lot of character descriptions. We get a lot of like nice vignettes of characters. These are just some Red Arms. And he looks at them and then immediately thinks that he should have brought her like a present or something. Like Matt's fear walking up to the door just escalates so dramatically.
Well, and that does foreshadow his whole thing where he starts to bring Selucia presents. So basically, instead of giving them to Tuon, he's giving them to Selucia, but he's really giving them to Tuon. And that way he's able to get around the whole, like, not handing her things.
No, and then it's not even that. It's like he does this whole thing where he gives all these things to Selucia, and then the very last one he gives to Tuon. Like after they're used to the pattern, and like Selucia steps forward to accept it. And then he puts it on the table and doesn't say anything. And they play a game of chess. And then he gives it to her and she's like, Stones. And then he gives it to her and she's like, yes, I am in fact getting pants feelings. And then she's wearing the rosebud that he got made for her the next day. It's so skillful done because it's like on the one hand,
isn't it he's getting a rosebud?
Yeah,
it's not real. Yeah,
it's silk. But it's like on the one hand, it's like getting around the Shan Chan cultural exchange. But then on the other hand, there's just getting around the like weird disapproving mom guard of Selucia and Satala and like getting past Tuon's personality. Like there's this whole interpersonal plus intercultural maze that he's navigating, and it's really above my pay grade, like how he manages that, but it's very skillful.
Yeah, and a lot of it's about getting parents' approval. A lot of it's about just, I think, a struggle for power over who's sort of in control and who owes who what. Right? There's that whole struggle about Toy and Precious, which I fucking hate it. Precious is such a terrible nickname. I hate that he picked that one, and I'm glad he lost. Not that Toy's that much better, but at least she didn't come up with it randomly as just a name. Although if you can figure out where he comes up with Precious, I'd like to see that the first time and see if he draws it from something. Well, let's get back to the book. We've been sort of on a tangent here for a minute.
Yeah, Matt goes into the wagon. That's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Notices that it smells.
He notices that the area around it smells. The lamps themselves don't smell of rancid oil, which I have now rendered tallow in my kitchen one time. And so now I have a vague idea of how bad the Middle Ages smelled. Terrible. But these ladies do not have rancid oil, so it's reasonably fine. And we get literally a paragraph description each for Mistress Anon, Selucia, and Tuon. And that takes up an entire page because this is chapter 3 and we need to be reminded what they look like.
In particular, Solucia's boobs are gone over in extensive detail.
Well, we're using them as a mask to hide her. If anyone sees her boobs, they won't be thinking about her face, which is why we need to look at them to make sure that they are distracting.
And just remember that Solucia's like a 007 level assassin, right?
Who looks like a literal Barbie.
Right.
Literal Barbie. Creamy skin, green eyes, long blonde hair. Well, now it's all shaved off. Some of her hair was long and blonde. Absolute ginormous honkin' knockers. I bet she literally has legs that are too long for her body just by some weird freak of nature accident. Like, she's literal Barbie, but can kill you. It's amazing. I love her so much.
Have you seen Farscape? I know I've asked this before, but I always forget.
No, I have not.
Scorpius, one of the main villains, has with him a blonde Barbie evil sort of sidekick that it sort of feels very similar to Solucia in this scene. But that's anyway. Farscape, can't recommend it enough. Great show, highly recommend it. It's very corny in the first season, as many of these shows tend to be before they get their character development and get the freedom from the studios that they need to actually delve into stories and stuff like that. But really, really good. It got cut short, but there is a movie, and I think it, does a pretty good job of wrapping up the series. Like, this is back in the days when fans could actually, like, protest enough that they could get a movie when the series got cut short, before the days of Netflix, when they just, like, axed shows randomly for no reason.
It's the golden years. So we also get comments about how Tuon is kind of pretty. Like, she's not really his type, but she is kind of pretty. He's definitely working on coming around to seeing her as pretty.
Yeah, there's an evolution of going from, this person looks like a little boy, to, they're very pretty. And especially in here is the question of, okay, she's got this sort of slender body. Is she a child? Because I don't want to be attracted to a child.
Right. And I do respect him for being very, like, I need to know how old you are before I progress any further with this situation.
Do you have an ID, a driver's license, perhaps? Maybe I can get that in triplicate.
Yeah. I appreciate that. But then... And I also love her reaction to being questioned on her age, because, like, when you're short and people assume that you're younger than you are, you claim every quarter inch and every 6-month anniversary you can possibly grab. Like,
Oh, and I love the spit take where she goes, "I'm 14. What? Oh, I guess in your terms, you don't have a second name day, so that'd be I'm almost 20. And he's like, "Oh, okay. Oh, thank God." But there is that moment where apparently, which gives you a bit of detail about the Shanshan culture, which is they get new names at 6.
Yeah, that there's a coming of age, coming into majority kind of thing.
Which I imagine if you have a high child mortality rate, it makes sense to have that sort of, okay, you've managed to make it to 6, we'll give you a name and treat you like a real person. Because there's a chance that you're going to make it to adulthood.
Like, half of all the people that are born die before the age of 5 or something stupid like that across human history. Like, it's truly obscene how hard it is to live past, or to get to age 6. I also love the comment here about the difference in Shanshan accents, that Tuon's accent is really crisp compared to Egyanan. Egyanan sounds like she has a mouthful of mush. So I'm imagining like that really crisp, like highly educated, like London accent versus like Cockney.
Yeah.
Just like absolute like rah, like mush mouth. Like I'm sorry, Cockney people, but like I cannot understand it.
Egyanan speaks with like a soldier's / sailor's accent.
Yeah, she's from she's probably from a rural district, had to like actually work her way up like through community college and like put herself through classes, and like she feels very working class. And this comment about the differences in accents, I think really, Egyanan is working class, and that's why she gets along with Domon so well.
I like that.
She was elevated to the blood, but she is from a blue-collar background.
So Tuon is pissed that she has been, in his story, relegated to a servant status, right? She's the servant who's going to report on him.
A thieving servant? A faithless servant? If she has to be a servant, can it at least not be the worst kind? I love it. I love it so much.
And this leads to one of, I think, the funniest moments where she's tossing these teacups at him and he's dodging and ducking. She goes to throw the chamber pot. Selusha goes, no, we're going to need that, and takes it away from her and puts it down. And Mistress Anan slyly hands her another teacup and goes, we got plenty of teacups if you want to throw that at him. And just like, and Matt's like, you're supposed to be guarding her, not giving her ammo to throw at my fucking head. What are you doing? And she's like, hey, you deserve the teacup to be thrown at you a little bit, Matt. You deserve that. Like, that whole interaction was just had me dying laughing while I was doing notes on this thing. I was just like, this is why I love Matt. This is the comic relief part of Matt, where it's like, yes, it's the end of the world. Yes, everything's dying. But he's just ridiculous and deserves to get a teacup thrown at his head.
Yeah, it's so funny. And like, it's also brilliant because what Mistress Anan is doing is gaining their trust.
Yeah.
That's what Mistress Anan is not here to guard them. That's what the Red Arms are for. What she's here to do is get close to them, learn what's going on, and guard him from her as much as her from escaping. Like, there's so many layers to what she sees her mission as being that Matt is just oblivious to. And so when she hands over a mug to get thrown at him, it's because that is how she gets brought into the inner circle.
Right, I like that. And she's also there to change their opinions about women who can channel, right? As a former Aes Sedai, she can argue for Aes Sedai without ever revealing that she is Marath Damani to this woman who could never hear reason from someone who was Marath Damani.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much. Mistress Anan is not on Tuon's side. She just sees the real threats that Tuon is offering and is adjusting for those threats.
Mm-hmm. Matt goes down and hits his hip, and to his surprise, it ached no worse after smacking the floorboards. So we are on his healing progression where he can actually like start to tumble and not immediately go down in pain. So he's pretty much 100% recovered from his hip injury at this point, from when the wall fell on him.
He's more like 80% because he literally walked up the hill leaning on Ekion like 20 minutes ago.
Fair. Okay.
But he is doing a lot better, and he's continuing to do better, which is encouraging. And then he says he thinks that she's more pretty when she smiles, which from any other woman character, I'd be like, Matt, you piece of shit. But coming from Tuon, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure she's a lot prettier when she smiles. She is so like, she went beyond resting bitch face. She's like, I have worked on the bitchiest face I can possibly make happen. So I imagine she is quite a bit prettier when she smiles.
Well, and of course, she smiles looking at the cup because she's also laughing at the fact that Selusha gave her the cup to throw at his head. Satala, yeah. Sorry. Jesus, Satala, Selusha. S names, Jordan. There's a video about it. In the last Watt Idol. We've had a video about it for a year now. It's time to deal with it. So,
Jordan, get it together from beyond the grave.
Get your shit together. Let's change some of these S names.
But yeah, no, she's definitely grinning at the fact that she's getting to Matt. She's got an ally in Satala. Like, it's a real grin. She's not flirt grinning with him. She's actually amused. And then he calls her by her name, and Selusha, snaps at him because he's a peasant. And Tuon says, don't worry about it. We're going to educate him. And it's just like, she's kind of setting out the ground rules for how she's going to be playing this game. Right? Is like, don't worry about how he's uncultured. We'll civilize him. It's fine. I can change him.
And so people are asking about Satala Anan's respect for Tuon and her background and how can they sort of exist in the same space. And I think that Satala Anan saw the Seanchan culture. And I think what she sees in Tuon is someone who is kind inside of that culture in the way she can be when she's constrained by her beliefs. And she thinks, if I can change her beliefs, I can make a change in the culture for the entire Seanchan empire, because this is the Empress. So I don't think it's so much I can stand it, so much as the payoff is so great to change her mind that's willing to do anything, much in the way that an Aes Sedai is, right? Including giving up her family, giving up her inn. She is there to change Tuon's mind about Damani and Soldam.
I'm nodding. I would just say that I disagree that she thinks that Tuon is kind. I don't think that she necessarily thinks that Tuon is kind. She just identifies her as the person whose heart and mind has to be changed. She knows that Tuon is smart and open to intellectual discourse. I don't know if she's kind, and I don't know if Satala thinks of her as kind, but she definitely identifies her as, like, if anyone's mind being changed can make a difference in this system, it's this woman's. This is the singular opportunity to end this system. And yeah, so I think that she can put up with anything. She can put forward any amount of respect to get into this woman's head and start her thinking.
And a lot of that does happen off screen. And I do mean
mostly
Satala, not Selucia, if I said that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it happens mostly off screen. I didn't realize how much of a relationship they had until I really started paying attention to my rereads. Like, it's super in the background, but it's a very solid relationship. I think that, you know, Tuon, she has Selucia, but Selucia's also a very strict taskmistress in some ways, like as she was growing up, you know, so she really hasn't ever had like a mother who just cares for her for herself and just cares about her emotional well-being. Satala is doing that, not for no reason, not altruistically. She's doing it to an end, but also she's extending a level of like non-demanding mother energy that I don't think Tuon has ever really had before. So that makes her really easy to open up to and be a friend with over the course of this stuff. Even though it's all off screen, like, you can imagine how much she can't help but open up to a woman who literally is a mother and has raised grown daughters when she's only ever had an absent empress who encourages her to get assassinated or her bodyguard for mother figures.
I do think there is a level of intellectual discussion going on as well. I think they talk a little bit about how some days it's just hard to keep up. Like, but I think we get a POV from Satala that she's like trying to convince her, and maybe I'm misremembering that. But I thought
no. There is a scene. It's not from Satala. It's from Tuon's point of view when they're leaving, because she says that she thinks she had managed to convince Satala of a few points about Shanshan hierarchies.
That's right.
Which it implies that they have had long discussions, and maybe Tuon has also been brought around to think, at least to entertain a few thoughts for a little bit. But it's so off screen, you don't get it till the end. You kind of have to do that reread inference of, like, in between these scenes where we rarely see them, they are having these late night discussions.
That POV, that Tuon POV, is actually a really, really good one to understand, because we only really get that one really good Tuon POV, and to understand her perspective in these books. Because again, I don't think Sanderson nails her. I think he misses Tuon almost entirely. I think he sees one very flat aspect of her and misses some of the human aspect that Jordan was trying to roll into her. So, again, Tuon's one of those characters who I kind of think of, before BS and after BS. Before BS, I think she's a much more human person who still has some serious flaws, but sees things from from her POV, and her POV is strong and directed and very easy to understand if you can ignore that Damane are people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's like Varen in that, like, it's a lot easier to understand her motivations when you get her POV, and you rarely ever get it.
Right.
Except I love Varen unequivocally, whereas Tuon I'm pretty, permanently dead set against. So they're different in that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I do love the combative sparring that she and Matt have, right? It's what makes them an interesting dynamic couple to me.
She spars with everybody, and it makes all of her interactions interesting. That's why Tuon is so... You keep coming back to her again and again, even though she's problematic, because everyone she interacts with, she challenges them to be their most talented at dealing with herself. I wouldn't say their best self, but certainly she challenges people.
So we get this bit about the story that concocted up that I think we've talked about.
Yeah.
And then he's sort of giving her plan, and he ends his plan with, as soon as I can figure out how to send you home safe and sound, I will, I promise. I'll make you as comfortable as I can until then. You'll just have to put up with the other. And so at that point, that's his promise to her to let her go, which is the fulfillment of the prophecy. And so her next question to him is, where's your ring? And he goes, what does that matter? Well, because that's the important part of the prophecy. She's asking about the prophecy. And he's like, strange how his hand felt noticeably lighter without it. Too light. As though somehow the ring's part of him. It belongs there. Right?
Like it matters. Like it's it matters. Prophecy.
Right. So clearly that ring is very important to her, along with the dice. Remember the dice stopped, I thought, when he picked it up or something. Didn't they? No,
he got the ring because it was the pause he needed while he was tracking Millie's skein.
Right, and it got stuck on his finger.
Right. And that's why he took it.
There was no
I don't think there's dice associated with that one.
Right, okay.
Should have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love how it's like, he's like, oh yeah, no, it's just a nothing ring. Also, I want it back.
And so he's like kind of ignoring her questions and like he's a little disturbed, but he's like trying to flirt with her. He's trying to put the move on, and both Satala and Selusha are blocking him. They're like preventing him from sitting down on the bed. He like wants to sit down next to Tuon to like basically put his arm around her and get all snuggly. And Satala and Selusha are not.
I don't think that's what he wants to do.
Well, not the. He moves to sit on the bed, not necessarily next to Tuon, but basically like to make himself comfortable to start the flirting process. Is my.
Yeah, I don't think he actually wants to initiate contact. He just doesn't know what else to do. I don't think he actually wants. He's so skittish around her still.
Okay.
I don't know what the fuck he's doing. I don't. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just wrong. I never read it as him like wanting to get like physical with her yet, because he's still so squirrely around the whole thing. But I also don't know what the fuck he's on about, so.
It's the line, burn her. She was behaving as though she were guarding Tuon from him.
Right, like Satala Anand thinks that's what he's going to do, but I don't think that's what he's thinking he's going to do. I don't know. He moved to sit on the unoccupied bed, not even next to her.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe he's just trying to sit because his leg hurts.
I mean, that was kind of how I interpreted it. He's just like, can I sit? Can I stop standing in front of this court of women? Can I sit like an equal? And they're like, no.
And the women are acting like he's trying to snuggle up to Tuon.
Yeah. And they're acting like he's trying to tear her clothes off and fuck her in the thing. And he's like, I literally just have a bad hip. It's like, women, am I right? It feels like that physical comedy to me.
And so then out of nowhere, Tuon follows up with a second question, right? From where's your ring, right? Because that was the fulfillment of the first part of the prophecy. To do you remember Hawkwing's face?
Which I thought she said so long ago, and you could hear it in an episode, and I'm embarrassed. But no, she asks it here.
Yeah, no, but this is what she asks, yeah. Which is super important, again, because the prophecy says the one she'll marry will, remember Hawkwing's face. He freezes, goes into like a, Windows 95 loop of not knowing what the fuck to say. And then lies really poorly at the end of all of that to say absolutely not. Mm-hmm. At which point Tuon goes, oh, so of course, yeah, you've totally seen his face.
Right, she doesn't know how, but he lied.
He lied.
He just like blanked for like a good 2 seconds and then made the most obvious no. Why would I know Hawkwing's face? He's been dead for 1,000 years. That's dumb. Right. And the reason Selusha suddenly looks at him is because she now suddenly understands what Tuon's on about.
Right.
She's like, for real, girl?
This one?
This is
the Tuon toy?
Him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do get like a flashback of Hawkwing on the battlefield as, he's remembering Kulain's memories on the battlefield. But, you don't need to go that far back. He saw him when they blew the horn of Valir in the Great Hunt. He talked to Hawkwing then.
Well, and then there's that. And then there's that. Also, it's interesting in the flashback right after it says a dozen other encounters skittered through his mind, all about Artur Pandrag. Just in case you thought maybe these are all sequential lives, no, absolutely not. So many men went to the Tower of Genjai because Artur Hawkwing was doing an Alexander the Great and ruining everything for everyone.
And possibly a Taviran.
Sure, but I imagine that there was just so many men, man after man, going to the tower being like, I need help. I need to get rid of this guy. This guy is fucking me over.
Well, and this is during the time when the gateways were much more accessible, right? They've laid unused for 300 years or more.
This is Hawkwing was well over that was 1,000 years ago. Yeah,
right.
1,000 years ago.
Right.
So like, yeah, the two redstone doorways were in completely different places. Well, the one in Ruidian had already been in Ruidian that whole time. The one in Tyr was in Mayen, presumably.
Right, and being used.
But like Mayen didn't exist 1,000 years ago, so clearly that door went on a journey.
But, yeah, the one in Ruidian was there the whole time, and that was never used until.
Yeah, until Rand popped through it.
Right, from the break.
Until
So
Matt
that was unused. Right, so that was unused for 3,000 years, as far as we're aware.
Right. But also the Tower of Genji exists, and people have known how to get in through that. So, but yeah, clearly, I think it's very clear that Arthur Hawkwing's conquest drove a lot of people to seek the help of the Finn. And that's why he has so many memories that include Hawkwing's face.
And don't forget, the one that was accessible is the one that answered questions, which is much more common in lore. The one about granting wishes is much more rare. Which makes sense, because you don't have all these weird powers, right, that people have been propping up for the last 3,000 years.
Right. Well, and most of them are going to be like monkey's paw style artifacts too. So, and then Matt is like, "Why would you ask that? That's really weird." And she's like, "I can lie too." Does not give him an answer.
A foolish question. Because
only someone with porridge for brains would think that you'd been given prophecies about your marriage partner from an Aes Sedai. That's ridiculous.
Right. That's ridiculous.
So of course she's not going to say that to him because she
doesn't want him to think he's stupid. She gives a little backhand compliment. You're not pretty enough for a cupbearer, but it might please me to have you for one. That's such a great, you're not cute enough for it, but I could maybe I could make it happen.
You're not cute enough for other people, but maybe I'll make an exception for you.
Wink. Right. Yeah, no, it's a very, their relationship, man.
And then she, prior to that, she had said, "We'll see what your promises are worth." And now here she says, "So long as you keep your promises, I will neither escape nor betray you in any way, nor will I cause dissension among your followers." Like, she basically is taking him at his word, right? He gives her a ridiculous promise that seems ridiculous, right? That he's going to let her go. She's the freaking heir to the throne. That's nonsense. So she makes an equally ridiculous promise that she won't try to run away. And it's like, I guess we're going to trust each other.
Well, but she has prophecy telling her he will, in fact, let her go, right? That's the fulfillment of the prophecy. He's fulfilled the fox that chases the ravens. He's fulfilled the seeing Arthur Hawkwing's face, which is crazy to her, right? He's taken her and kidnapped her, which is part of the fulfillment of the prophecy. The only thing he really has to do is let her go.
At which point she will marry him.
She will marry him. And so she believes that this is in fact the man who will let her go. So she says, as long as you keep your promise, the promise including letting her go, I'm not going to try and escape. Right? So why would she try and escape? She's got a promise backed up by prophecy that he's going to let her go.
Yep. But to him, it's like, wow, that is a bold promise that you're going to not escape. And
that's a huge leap of faith. And it's like, she's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. But, it's as far as he can tell, they're both taking equal leaps of faith on each other. So it works as a basis of trust for them.
Even though they both have prophecies that are the source of why they're doing it, and has nothing to do with any trust whatsoever on either of their parts.
So much porridge for brains in this scene.
Matt, who never gets that Selucia is a badass because he can't see past the boobs.
Oh,
for a lady's maid, she could look fierce when she tried. Yeah, for a lady's maid who's also an assassin.
Right, and that's why she looks at him with this kind of insulted look of wait, you don't get who I am? I thought you were marrying her. Don't you get it?
She's under constant threat of assassination. I'm a bodyguard. I stop most of those assassinations. I'm a badass.
Hello. You really think she keeps a maid with her in this circumstance? I'm not a maid, you dumbass. She is a maid, but she's not just a maid. And then and then Matt does the palm spit handshake, and then Tuon just immediately rolls with it. She's like, "Oh, your customs are earthy, but I guess that's how we do it." And I love that. There's just something about that just makes me like, oh, right, they're still basically teenagers. This is so cute. And then right as they shake hands, the dice stop. And I always assumed that was the entirety of why the dice stop. But as the Winter's Heart segment at the end suggests, as the entirety of us doing the Winter's Heart segmentation into this book suggests, this might actually be the moment that the train pulls out of the station on the cleansing.
So you know what I headcanon? This is the first time he has two sets of dice rolling in his head. They just both happen to stop at the same moment because Rand starts the cleansing at the same moment that he shakes hands with Tuon.
I could buy that. Because both of those are dicey events.
Mm-hmm. And he talks about how loud it is and how distracting it is this time and how it's rumbling extra hard, it seems like. I bet it's two sets of dice.
Yeah. Though, I mean, there's nothing particularly that Matt can do about it. How is it fateful to Matt that the cleansing is happening?
I mean, I think at that point it's just the last battle and...
Okay. But also... I'm thinking about the timing, because when he goes to see the Aes Sedai at the end of the chapter, they say we can't go because there's this thing that's happening.
We see this a lot with Ta'Veren, where big events happen to them in the same moment. They're often synced up. When something happens to one, something often happens to another. And so that could be what we're seeing here. It doesn't have to mean that the cleansing itself is significant for Matt, just so much that significant things are happening to Matt and Rand at the same time. And they're related because they're all tied together in the pattern of Ta'Veren web.
Right, and Perrin just doesn't notice at this point because he's my wife.
Yeah, there's a whole implication that he is totally blotting out his connection to the pattern because he's focused on his wife. But of course, it's his focus on his wife that allows him to gather the troops that he needs to actually fight the last battle. So clearly that's part of the Ta'Veren plan. So I have a whole debate about that. Mm. About how the pattern actually wants him to ignore it for a little while, I guess.
Yeah, the pattern is a passive-aggressive bitch, is what I just heard.
Fine, you don't want to pay attention to me? I'll just send you on a quest to get bigger armies. Bye!
Yeah.
I'll see you when you get back.
Yeah. And Matt also notes that this is the third time that the dice have stopped with her. So again, with that triplicate, things that come in threes are extra strong. Yes, Matt, there is no getting out of this. This is this is your wife. Right before that, I noticed Selusha watched him slip the knives back up his sleeves with considerable interest. So what happened is Tom stuck his head in and surprised him, and so he whipped out his knives really quick. And I think Selusha, for the first time, realized how fast and how good he is with his knives. Because that was the first time she's ever seen him really react with them at speed. And so now she's going, oh, actually, that was... Because, of course, Selusha is just as good, if not better, with her knives. Oh, yeah.
So she recognizes someone who also has considerable skill. And so I think that's why she's watching Matt with interest. Is she's like, oh, no, he actually is pretty skilled with his knives.
I think also it's a threat assessment thing. She didn't realize that Matt had that ability, and she's like, oh, I have to upgrade his threat level to Tuon.
Right. Because remember, Tom says he's got the fastest hands he's ever seen, and so he whips those knives out as fast as anyone possibly can.
Right, because he's finally starting to flirt with his future wife, and then someone knocks on the door, so clearly he needs to go full guard dog defensive mode.
Well, and not to mention the dice just stopped, right? So
also
that's high alert. The dice stop, and then something bad happens. That's what Matt is primed for. He's waiting. He's like, okay, what's that something bad? He's jerking. He's on 360 to alert, and then someone knocks on the door. Of course, he's gonna jump. He's gonna jump 10 feet in the air. He's gonna jump like someone goosed him.
Yeah. Tom's lucky he didn't get a knife to the eye.
Really lucky. Of course, Tom would have just caught it. Whatever.
Well, he would have had to dodge. I mean. But yeah, it's a wonder Matt didn't just automatically attack whoever came through the door, given that moment. But yeah, Tom comes in to kind of report on the state of affairs in the city, which starts out with a report on Tuon's disappearance and the lack of news surrounding it, which surprises Matt.
Which it's being hidden for all sorts of reasons, including Dark Friend reasons and... so they can kill her and take over.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Shan reasons, a bunch of Dark Friend reasons, tons of reasons. Tuon absolutely expected that. It's a perfectly ordinary, run-of-the-mill way for a situation like this to go down. We know that there's more to it than that, but... Especially
for someone like her who's disappeared before. Yeah, totally.
And then we get to the action.
Yeah, Tylin is dead. Yeah.
Tylin is dead, and all the people who don't like rapists rejoice.
I don't think she deserved to die. Honestly, I think Matt's reaction and the whole reaction to Tylin can be summed up in, Did you care for Tylin so deeply? She asked in a cautious voice. Yes. No. Burn me. I liked her. And it's like, did you care for her deeply? No. She was kind of a rapist, but yes, she was also like very important to Matt in that moment and in that time. And he did come to care for her no matter how the relationship started.
Right. And there's this is the worst kind of non-closure, right? Like leaving her behind, being let go, leaving her to do her life is one thing, but to have caused her death
there's
is
some
a kind
guilt
of,
in that.
Yeah, like there's a hanging. Now he can't ever resolve it. He can't go back in 20 years and be like, "Hey, remember that time you raped me? I'm still kind of pissed about it." That's never going to happen, right? Like,
and also now he's not entirely the victim in the situation, because he caused her death. So that in some ways makes her the victim.
Yeah, I mean now it's and like he was habituated to her. He was responding to her. He tried to get her to leave with him, and instead she's dead. Like there is so much complicated feelings there, and it's really easy to sit to the side and be like, yeah, fuck that bitch. But like from where Matt's sitting, like it can't be that simple. It just can't. And I like how much like it's not like he's struck with grief. It's more complicated than that, but I like how much he is absolutely flattened by the news and how much it affects how he interacts for the rest of the chapter. Like it really, he doesn't just roll with it. It stays on his back for the rest of the chapter. It really bothers him.
And of course we all know it was a golem, the golem that was following him that he fought, right? That's a real thing.
Right. Yeah. Like her head was torn off. So the obvious conclusion is golem, and no one believes him except for the people who know that there's no other explanation. So yeah, Tuon's response is so frustrating.
Right. Oh, she thinks Trollocs are superstition too. It's like this because they wiped out.
You count ants to predict the weather, my girl. Do not tell me about superstition.
This is Jordan being like making his characters hypocritical. He likes them to be wrong about things, and her, saying their superstition is ridiculous, and then going off and immediately following her superstition. Right? I believe this is commentary on people who are like, your religion is wrong, my religion is right.
But like these are like not even in the same league. We're talking about someone who's saying my lived experience is that monsters are real. And there's someone who's saying that they can count the ants in a broken line and predict the weather. Like these are not in the same fucking room.
But that's her lived experience, right? Her lived experience is that when she counts the ants, they give her an accurate representation of the weather.
But they don't. They don't. The same way that a golem attacking you and ripping out your friend's throat is real. Like it's just I don't. This is I am against religion. I am so against religion. Okay, I am not the person who's defending religion. But like, if you want to make this argument, you need to make both sides equally competent at making their arguments. Otherwise, it's just a comedy of saying, "See, one religion's right and the others are dumb," and I hate it. I hate it.
I will wonder, and Jordan gives us, we looked for evidence, there's no evidence of this, if the omens that Tuon talks about are based on Doomseer omens, which are based on someone with Min's ability, where at some point in the past there was a Doomseer who saw an omen and matched that to an outcome, and they have created a table where this omen means that outcome. And then the only difference is then they apply that to real life, which is bullshit. So that's sort of where I imagine it comes from. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, remember us having this discussion before. You described it as being punch cards held up to the sun.
Right.
Which I thought was a great analogy. Yeah. So I find the comparison here that she's making to be a little flat, because it's like, you're denying that he's fought monsters. He has scars. He's lost people. Like, why? You're smarter than this, like. She's smarter than this.
Yeah. But I think what Jordan is trying to make us do is question whether or not her omens actually mean something, right? In the same way that we're questioning, we're like, her stuff is ridiculous in the same way that she thinks our stuff is ridiculous. And wait a minute, maybe there's some validity to her omens here. Maybe we should pay attention. Maybe they are actually guiding her in some way, right?
Yeah, and I think that does really tie into Min's ability being somewhere in the origin of their prophecies. Like, there was an explanation. There was once upon a time. And
right.
Yeah, I just wish that her side of the equation was a little more compelling.
I do. I wish that he'd actually given us some clear evidence that the omens worked. I think that would have made the argument way stronger if there was this other thing. Because, like, we believe in Ta'veren, we believe in this random chance associated around this one person. Surely you can believe that there's some sort of, code in the pattern that lets you decipher when bad events are going to happen because of these, 3 swans swimming in a certain, formation. It would be nice if we had some evidence. But as far as I can tell, her prophecies are so fucking vague. Something bad is eventually going to happen is not a prophecy. That's just a fact of life.
Right. And owl hooting means someone's going to die soon. It's like, well, owls do hoot on a daily basis and people do die on a daily basis. Yeah. It's
like the graphs where people go to, take the United States and say, we can show where this happens. And they show you a population graph. And you're like, yes, it happens where there are people. And it happens more often where there are more people. That proves absolutely nothing to me. Yeah,
not compelling. Thank you.
Not compelling, yeah. It's why people need to know, like, with the population density of the United States, you should know roughly how many people there are in your country. So when they say 20% of all people or 10% of all people, you can be like, okay, well, there's like 300 million people in the US. So 10% of that is 30 million, right? Like a rough calculate. It can help you get through a lot of news if you know basically some really basic facts about population sizes in the world, in the US, in your state, that sort of thing.
Yeah, understand statistics and geography. Please.
Oh, God. And then don't get me started on the whole percent change versus absolute percent difference.
I will not. I will encourage us to get back to the chapter.
Baerlich comes running in, right, behind Tom and says, basically, Jolene wants you now. And he says, tell her I'll see you later. And he says, no, she needs you now. Get your ass together. We're going. And so he sort of grumbles and follows along.
Right, because he would like to process the part where he's feeling, quote, numb at the core and scraped raw on the surface. He would like to sit with that and process like an emotionally responsible person. But instead, he's being summoned to deal with some green not liking how her fitted sheets are on the cot or whatever.
Right. But not knowing it's actually to do with the power in the West and how...
Yes. This is a very real summons. They do need to talk to him right now.
But you're right. He hasn't had a chance to deal with some very horrific news that someone very dear to him and near to him has died in a very horrific way, in a way that he left her and was kind of the indirect cause of. Yeah.
Yeah, like he needs an hour.
Yeah.
He's not even getting 5 minutes.
No.
But yeah, they head out and it's raining. Which is relatable because it's Oregon and it's April and so it's raining.
Oh, it's beautiful here. It's been like the nicest day in the world here.
Oh, very nice. It's been very rainy here. Bits of snow, the whole bit.
Wow. I mean, it's cool here, but I wouldn't have expected that. Amazing what just a few miles difference can make and a mountain range.
Yeah, the mountain range has a lot to do with it.
and a mountain range.
No big deal.
Why is Tuon so shocked when Jolene is a Aes Sedai?
I'm assuming just because she didn't expect there to be a Marath Damani in such close proximity.
Or is it the way he talked about it? Tell Jolene I'll see her once we're on the road, and just like the way he waves her off? Or is it the fact that he says bloody Aes Sedai? I couldn't, Tuon's jaw dropped in shock.
I think it's that he has an Aes Sedai. I think it's that there's an Aes Sedai in the entourage. She didn't know. She hasn't got, because it's been, 3 days? And, she didn't know, I'm guessing?
No. She didn't know that there were any Marath Damani, with them on the trip, right?
I mean, I think she knows that there's Marath Damani being absconded with. I don't think she knows that there was a never-collared Aes Sedai. And also, Matt wouldn't call any of them Marath Damani, so... I just, that's all I thought. But that's kind of weak, so... If there's a better explanation, I'm open to it.
Same.
But chat has not provided one yet.
So he gets soaked because it started to pour rain while he was in that cart, right?
Yeah, rapid onset of rain. Kind of like the rapid onset of bad news.
Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do, I think, with channeling or the cleansing or anything like that, because it's still really far away, yeah. We get a description of the circus all packed up.
Yeah, they're kind of leaving in a chaotic fashion, but Luca's clearly fine with it, so it's not like the show's dissolving. It just, the way it moves is chaotic. This description of these clowns is just so weird. It's so bleak and strange.
Oh, and I made a mistake because I thought the wagon that Tuon and Selucia and Tylin were in were the clown's wagon, but it's actually this one that has the 6 Sul'dam and the 3 Sul'dam and the 3 Aes Sedai in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. I mixed up those two wagons.
I didn't even notice because I don't care whose wagons they are. But the description of the clowns is very weird. A company of fools, 4 morose men who painted their faces for the show's patrons, dousing each other with water and hitting each other with inflated pig bladders, and otherwise spent their time and money imbibing as much wine as they could buy. And what Matt had paid for rent, they might be drunk for months, and it had cost more than that to make anyone take them in. Like, those sound like the worst, most annoying people.
It's like a bunch of frat bros that just, like, decided to keep doing what they were doing in front of a crowd for money.
And now they're, like, decades into it. Their nervous systems are, like, shot. They're completely depressed and, like, have a string of failed relationships. Yeah. Total alcoholics. Like, they do comedy on stage, but they are raging alcoholics, absolutely cranky bastards. And
having them in your house means you're going to be cleaning up vomit. You're going to be dealing with the people they bring back. You're going to be dealing with.
They never clean up their dishes. Their dirty laundry's everywhere. They just kind of stink and don't shower. Totally inconsiderate. Come in at all hours of the night. Have the loudest sex you've ever heard. Like, these are the drummers of rock bands
with the skeeziest people you've ever met. Oh God,
yeah. Yeah, I'm basically.
We've had that roommate. Basically just drummers.
I know drummers. I say this with love.
See, why do I picture these guys bringing back like girls from Burning Man?
Yeah.
With the the light up bracelets,
the white girl dreads.
Yep. Not that I know anybody like that in Portland.
Religion says, as a percussionist, I agree. See, I've been saying it with love. I know percussionists. I'm not a percussionist. I'm very bad at multi-limb coordination, but I know a lot of you.
Percussionists are classy, drummers are hoes.
Oh, okay. Well, that actually does actually fit. Rock and roll drummers are the worst, but all drummers are pretty bad.
It's kind of like the difference between someone who plays the violin and someone who plays the guitar. They're both string instruments, but one is classy and one plays Wonderwall in the Walmart parking lot at 3 a.m.
That is the third Wonderwall I have heard in like 24 hours. Why is Wonderwall so in my fucking consciousness today? What is happening? Anyway, so we go into the wagon.
With 4 beds and 6 women, which, how do you think they manage that? Are they sharing beds or 2 people sleeping on the ground? What's going on?
I'm thinking floor sleeping. I'm definitely thinking floor sleeping. There is no cuddling happening whatsoever.
So do you think the 3 Aes Sedai... So we've got, basically 3 factions going on here. We've got the Sul'dam on one side. On the other side, you've got the Tower Aes Sedai, and then you've got the Rebel Aes Sedai. So do you think like the 2 Tower Aes Sedai are making the Rebel Aes Sedai sleep on the floor?
Absolutely.
And on the other side,
Edicina is such a shrinking, don't notice me character in this scene. She is the lone one out as the rebel. She is absolutely the lowest hen in the pecking order, getting made to sleep on the floor. I don't know how the Sul'dam are sorting it out, but definitely Edicina's the one floor sleeping.
And on the other side, you've got Bethaman, Sita, and Rena, right? So Bethaman and Sita got collared together by Rand. Rena got collared when Egwene got rescued, right? And Rena goes on to be shot in the back when she runs away. And she betrays and gets shot in the back, which in a lot of ways to me is like justice for Egwene.
Well, she also stabs Egwene before she takes off, so it's justice for Egwene too.
Egwene survives, but
sure.
like all the torture that she, but like this Rena was the one who called her Thule. Like this is very much this person who we hated in The Great Hunt and was an awful person who goes on to kind of meet almost a deserving fate, I think, when she gets shot in the back. I think that's, but that is a moment when Matt says never again. I will never kill another woman again.
So
and he
annoying.
does sort of, it's really annoying.
Just like, of all the women you've killed, that one deserved it.
Right. And Bethaman and Sita, which I'm sure have done just as horrific things, do eventually admit that they can channel and go on to become novices in the White Tower.
Right. And Rena is also the one who's like, even here it gets mentioned, she's the one who was the source of the talk about cutting off of hands and feet. Like, she's clearly a hardliner, hard ass within the Sul'dam circles.
Right.
So it's very nice that she's the one that decides to betray them and get shot in the back, and the other two have actual redemption arcs.
And among the Aes Sedai, you've got Jolene and Tylin, right? Were both the Tower Aes Sedai, but Jolene was never captured. So in a lot of ways, she doesn't have the same fear of the other three of the Sul'dam that the other two have.
Yeah, and in that way, Teslin kind of sees herself as being more in common with Edicina, right? She looks to Edicina and says, help me convince Jolene. And Jolene's like, this bitch doesn't even deserve to be rescued. Like, why are you siding with her? And it's like...
Yeah. So there's really interesting dynamics among these 6 women,
yes.
if you like think about it.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot going on.
Too small of a wagon for all this drama.
They're all minor enough characters that I feel like without doing some research, it's very hard to understand exactly how this relationship is working, because they're all not major characters, but we get a lot of them. And so we're able to sort of figure out what's going on. So basically the news that we get from Jolene that all of these women are aware of, right, despite 3 of them not admitting it, is that essentially the cleansing has started, right? She senses a lot of power being channeled too far away to sense that much power. And we're going to get this in every damn chapter, right? It's going to repeat over and over and over again. That much power, that far away. It must be, it's world ending. It's forsaken. Something terrible is happening, clearly.
Yeah, like there is a nuclear bomb going off in a world where nuclear bombs are just a theoretical white paper that someone wrote. Like, suddenly now there's a mushroom cloud on the horizon. Like, this is unprecedented.
Yeah, and if I can see that mushroom cloud...
Like, the shockwave is coming, the radiation, we need to go to ground. Like, they literally say we need to just turn and run. It doesn't matter what direction, as long as it is away. Shantan doesn't matter. We need to go away.
Because they're heading towards it right now.
More or less, yeah. Yeah, and they're like, we can't do that.
North, right? And...
Yeah.
But it's far enough away, because remember that's happening in Shadar Logoth, and they're basically in Ebou Dar. So that's not the furthest away you can be from Shadar Logoth. Ebou Dar is kind of south of it, south and east of it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're talking about heading more or less directly at the explosion of power.
Right. But it's just so far away, he's like, that just doesn't matter.
Right. He's like, is something bad happening right now? They're like, unprecedented, yes. And he's like, is it gonna kill us? And they're like, but it's unprecedented. And he's like, then I don't care. It's not, it's just doesn't matter. And like, it does matter. You should be worried, but also, what are you gonna do about it? It's not gonna hurt you. So he's right to ignore it. But yeah, they are... I wonder if the Sul'dam can feel it, because their ability is underdeveloped, but this is such a massive blast of power. You'd think they'd probably be feeling it.
Well, and for a long time, they've said, hey, they can sense whether or not a Damane is channeling, whether or not you're holding the bracelet, those who have been Sul'dam long enough. So certainly they can sense the flows of the normal channeling, so I can't imagine why they wouldn't sense this. But again, with the whole denying, we can't. They may not be attuned enough to pick out what's going on. They just probably feel a sense of foreboding or something like that.
Right. There is that listening to the wind sort of feel of like, I know something's wrong. I can feel it. But like the Aes Sedai actually are able to, with their practice, with their experience, they say we can tell that a woman is channeling more of the power than a woman should be able to channel. Very specifically in that direction by hundreds of leagues.
Interesting that the medallion has not turned cold, so it's far enough away the medallion doesn't see it as a threat, and that's, I think, more than Jolene what he bases his assessment on. That like, well, if the medallion isn't activating, it's far enough away not to be a threat.
Yeah, for sure. Which I think is, again, a very reasonable metric for him to be using.
Here's a question. The Choedan call versus Matt's medallion. If Rand hits Matt with, let's say, Balefire, because why not?
Sure.
At the full power of the Choedan call. But Matt was wearing the Foxhead medallion. Could it negate all of that power? Or would it overwhelm the Foxhead medallion? Would it just unravel that weave? Or is it even possible to unravel that much power? Where would that power go? What would happen to it?
I don't think that the medallion would be able to hold back the Choedan call. I think it would be overwhelmed by it and probably poof out of existence in a puff of antimatter or something.
You think one's just because it's just just a Terran of limited power, and then Balefire would get essentially overloaded. Too much power through it would just pop a fuse and it would go poof.
I mean, yeah, I just don't think that the medallion, I mean, any weave, I don't think that the medallion could stand up to the full strength of the Choedan call, pushing a weave at it. Like, it was built to be the biggest thing ever. It could challenge the creator. I'm sorry, but no trinket from the fin is going to stand up to that.
Okay. I agree. I was just curious.
Yeah, that's my opinion on that. But it would be interesting to see. I mean, maybe not with Matt and his life in the offing, but it would be interesting to try it.
If you must know, someone is channeling. Tylin and Edicina nodded. The red sister reluctantly, the yellow emphatically. In the camp, he said in alarm. His right hand rose on its own to press against the silver foxhead under his shirt. But the medallion had not turned cold. Far away, Jolene replied, still unwillingly. To the north. Much further away than any of us should be able to sense channeling, Edicina put in, a touch of fear in her voice. The amount of Sidar being wielded must be immense. Inconceivable. She fell silent at a sharp glance from Jolene, who turned back to study Matt as though deciding how much she had to tell him. At that distance, she went on, we wouldn't be able to feel every sister in the tower channeling. It has to be the Forsaken, and whatever they're doing, we do not want to be any closer than we can avoid. Matt was still for a moment. Then finally he said, if it's far, then we stick with the plan. Jolene went on arguing, but he did not bother to listen. Whenever he thought of Rand or Perrin, colors swirled in his head, a part of being Ta'Veren, he supposed. This time he had not thought of either of his friends, but the colors had suddenly been there, a fan of 1,000 rainbows. This time they had almost formed an image, a vague impression that might have been a man and a woman seated on the ground facing one another. It was gone in an instant, but he knew as surely as he knew his name, not the Forsaken, Rand. And he could not help wondering, what had Rand been doing when the dice stopped?
Cleansing his taint.
And yeah, so he sees this fan of colors. This is one time where it comes to him no matter what he's doing, right? This is the pattern saying, you need to know what's going on with Rand right now. You are connected to him. He's doing something significant. I mean, this is essentially universe changing. Yeah,
it's kind of like when Perrin witnesses Veins of Gold happening. It's akin to that, only less dramatic.
Right. But it's sort of that way of the pattern showing this to Matt and saying this is what's going on with Rand. You need to know that. Mm-hmm.
Right. The world is changing. Rand is doing one of his big dragon activities. This is not some little political thing. This is a sea change for the world. You should be alerted to that.
And I like the way the patterns link them so that they can, in a lot of ways, even though they never end up in the same room, they're always sort of together. Mm-hmm. Because they can always see what the other person is doing. It's like being on a Zoom call with someone forever, for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
Like if they think of you, they can see you, and you pop up on their Zoom. Yeah. And it's like, we're not in the same space, but in a lot of ways we are working together, and we're aware of what the other person is doing and what the other person needs.
Yeah, and you can definitely make great collaborative art through Zoom.
Right. And so there is a lot of like, yes, I know they're okay. Yes, I know what he needs me or doesn't need me, or there's still time, right? There's some of that sort of communication that's happening between them, irrespective of their actual ability to communicate. And in that way, the pattern is tugging on them and tugging them together. And God, one of the things I wish that Sanderson had been able to do was put together the three of them in one room for the last book, and he never did that. And that's one of my biggest, I wouldn't say disappointment, but I think one of the biggest misses of the final book.
Yeah, absolutely nodding for sure.
Even after, I would have loved to see Rand walking away as Moradin, or in Moradin's body, and Matt and Perrin just sort of run into him and be like, "Oh yeah, we know who you are."
Mm-hmm. That'd be so cool. Because
they're still connected through the pattern and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But, we got a little bit of that with Matt and Rand doing the one-upsmanship scene, and Perrin being there for Veins of Gold.
And Perrin and Rand talk about stuff. They smoke their pipes and talk about that time that Perrin fell down the stairs with Fael on top of him. Rand gets a reunion with everybody, but not all at once. Everybody doesn't get a reunion with everybody. And that's what we really needed.
And I can see where in the storytelling, Azul saying Brandon Sanderson said they tried to get the boys together, and I've heard him say that they tried. It couldn't work out for the plot.
You're a writer, make it work. I don't get it. I refuse to get it.
And I'm like, you can make it a priority. It's about where your priorities lie, right? And his priority was in hitting certain story beats, and my priority is in I want my three friends to hang out one more time. Okay?
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Exactly. The audiobook timestamp for this, for Barmelon's perspective, is 29:36.
Should I just read the whole thing?
Yeah. Why don't you read it and then we'll talk about it.
Riding his cart down the snowy road to Tremoncine, Barmelon wondered whether the old... Jesus, you're just killing me with names here. Give me a second. Riding his cart down the snowy road to Tremoncine, Barmelon wondered whether old Maglin, whether old Maglin at the Nine Rings would pay what he wanted for the plum brandy in the cart behind him. He was not sanguine. She was tight with silver, Maglin was. The brandy was not very good, and this late in the winter, she might be willing to wait until spring to get better. Suddenly he realized that the day seemed very bright, almost like summer noon instead of a winter morning. Strongest of all, the glow seemed to be coming from the huge pit beside the road, where workmen from the city had been digging away until the previous year. There was supposed to be a monstrous statue down there, but he had never been interested enough to actually look for himself. Now, almost against his will, he reined in his stout mare and climbed down into the snow to trudge to the brink of the pit. It was 100 paces deep and 10 times as far across, and he had to put his hands in front of his face against the blinding glare that came from the bottom. Squinting through his fingers, he could make out a glowing ball like a second sun. Abruptly, it came to him that this must be the one power. With a strangled yell, he lumbered back through the snow to his cart and scrambled up, flailing Nisa with the reins to get her moving, even as he was trying to jerk her head around back to his farm. He was going to stay in his own house and drink that brandy himself. All of it.
All of it.
All of it. It's a lot of brandy. That's one way to die.
Yeah. I mean,
this is full of callbacks, right?
Oh my God, yes.
So, the Nine Rings, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, obviously the Lord of the Rings reference, yes, right, to the Nine Rings.
Yes.
But this is one we've seen before because in The Great Hunt, Rand and Matt stay at the Nine Rings and they meet Barmelon,
Wait, they actually meet Barmelon at the Nine Rings? I remember the Nine Rings is mentioned, but...
Hold on. I was looking it up earlier, and I thought it did say they had met them.
I could totally believe it. I did not do my research on this. I was like, oh yeah, I know what happened there. And I'm like, wait, did I miss something? I might have missed something. Because Tremoncine is the town that they approach after when Celine leaves them. Celine is with them.
No, you're right. They have not met him yet. No, you're right. They have not met him before. They did, however, meet Manglin.
They did meet the bartender of the Nine Rings.
They did meet the bartender of the Nine Rings, right? They stayed at the Nine Rings,
right? They pick it because it's one of Rand's favorite stories. And he's like, oh, that gives me a good fuzzy feeling. Yeah.
So, just to reference, Magan welcomes Rand, Loyal, Huron, and Selene to the Nine Rings and gives them a meal.
Oh, she's the one who's like, you gotta go fuck your lady. You gotta go be nice to her so that way you can get laid.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot.
She's originally from Lugard.
Yes.
Baron left her the inn when he died. So she tells a story about Baron and how she got left the inn and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so this guy is one of her suppliers. Just the way Tam brings brandy down to the wine spring, this guy brings brandy down to the Nine Rings, to this bartender who we saw literally one time and made a very awkward situation even more awkward.
Right. And so I don't think there's any mention of Barmelin in that chapter, but he's mentioning someone who we have.
Yes, he is calling us back to that whole experience. And then, of course, also the more obvious callback is he's taking us to look at the Choedan Call, which is buried in a pit outside of Cairhien that Rand had an early experience with the power when he was looking at it.
Right. And that was the whole, he nearly got sucked into it, and Selene stopped him from getting sucked in, right, and called his name. And of course, where workmen from the city have been digging away until the previous year. Why did they stop digging? Because the digging was a project of Barthanes, right?
Galdrian?
Or the king?
It was Galdrian.
Which one was it? It was the king.
Because they went to go see Barthanes, who's the rival of the guy who's doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the two.
And then
of them.
Tom went in there and killed him and started a civil war.
Right.
Because Rand got in there and made other people kill his girlfriend because they wanted him to do things. It's very complicated.
It's very complicated. But essentially, yes, the reason they stopped digging is because the person who was funding the dig is dead because Tom killed him.
Yes. And so now it's just still sitting there being a weird pit with a man's face and a hand holding a ball coming out of it. And now the ball is glowing to the eyes of anyone. It's not only to people who can channel the power. It is lit up like a floodlight. Anyone can see that.
There's so much of the one power going through it. Luminescence is just a side effect.
Right, exactly. It's illuminating from just the sheer volume of power that's passing through it. Because
these are the Saw Angreal that are being used. The keys that Rand is holding just gives him access to this statue. This is the one that's actually doing it. And we'll actually see. And this is the male, by the way. This is the one that Rand is channeling through.
Yes.
The female version we'll see
next week.
Next episode, yes. Where we get a very similar reaction, or a very different reaction to a very similar circumstance.
Yeah, the next one we'll see the same phenomena for the other statue. But yeah, and it's funny too, because I think Selene says that you can't even channel into the Choedan Call directly. You have to go through the access keys. It's like a step
absolutely.
Up, like Transformer sort of thing. But yeah, this is the actual power plant as opposed to the key.
I think of a transformer as a great way to think about that, to be like, hey, you see those big power lines outside? If you plug any of your electronics into it, it will fry it. You cannot use that directly. You need a transformer to step that down to a power level that you can access. And yeah, it'll provide way more power than you can use as much as you need. But without that transformer, anything you use is just going to burn you out in an instant.
Yeah, that is what the access keys are, in addition to being a more portable way of utilizing the Choedan Call, because they aren't very portable.
A giant statue. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then this guy makes the very reasonable decision, much like the Aes Sedai, that if there's that much power being wielded that you can tell at a distance and that you shouldn't be able to tell, then the reasonable conclusion is to hide under the bed and get blackout drunk.
So here's a question. Do you think this man has the ability to channel? Do you think that's one of the reasons why this draws him, right? Or do you think it's just the sun light shining that he can't resist because he has to know what it is? The curiosity killed the cat thing.
I mean, I like the idea that he's being tugged on because he's a learner who just, it's so powerful that even a closeted, for lack of a better word, in denial kind of learner.
Latent ability.
Yeah, someone with a latent ability would be vibing with it, just like illuminating, basically. Like their ability for that would also be coming to a higher vibration just by proximity. I like that. I think it is any reasonable person would be drawn to look at it because it is bright. Is it giving off light? Am I making it up that it's giving off light, or is it only giving off light to people who can channel, and this is how he learns that he can channel?
No, because, and again, the spoilers for next time, but the illumination of the female one, right? That's the fulfillment of prophecy and the end of illusion. That sphere is shining like a glorious sun.
Okay, so yeah, it has to be a very real illumination.
Yeah, I think there's every indication that that's a very real light, that it's not just appearing in channelers, although that would be cool. But he doesn't describe it as the light of the one power or anything like that. It's just a bright light shining like the noonday sun.
Right, but the whole being drawn against your will to look at something scary is that's a very human experience.
True, although that is kind of what happened to Rand, though, is he was drawn to this Choedan call. So that's why it's a very similar sort of verbiage in terms of Rand was drawn to it because he could channel.
I mean, I'm perfectly okay headcanoning that he's a latent learner.
I think that's a fine headcanon without a lot of evidence, but I think it's a fine headcanon.
That's good. That's fun. Yeah, so that is what is happening with the cleansing. The cleansing is currently raging and scaring people across the length and breadth of the land. That is where we're at. That
basically the light, we saw Rand start to channel, and now we're seeing the Choedan call light up, right? So I feel like we're still in the startup sequence of this thing. Yeah,
we've kind of they've done the necessary acceleration to get up to cruising speed, and the world is wait, are we at cruising speed? What? We are cruising towards what? Because I'm assuming at this point the taint is starting to move. He's starting to feel that motion, and they're just at the beginning. They've just barely started that. The first beads of sweat. Only the first few beads of sweat.
Jolene has just started to sense the channeling just a few minutes ago and sent for Matt, right? We're in the and I like the way these chapters are balancing out. The POVs and the chapters are working really nicely for, all of this stuff is happening concurrently. It's just really nice the way the 20 POVs and the 20 chapters comes together.
Yeah, it's Taviran. The wheel is weaving for us.
The wheel has woven, yeah. I think on that note, we are turn off recording.
Hold on. There's actually one more thing.
Yes. Okay.
Which I haven't actually talked with you about.
That's why I didn't know about it. Yeah.
But I was editing Toval After Dark yesterday, and I heard this pitch on theirs. We have been given an offer through Nameless. Nameless contacted me about this, and they just made this offer on TVAD. So one of Nameless's friends has started a company. It is a Black-owned, queer-owned apparel company, and they're willing to do an affiliate program, basically, with us. So I'm going to get us an affiliate link set up, so that way if you go to this company's website and buy any of their stuff with our coupon code, we get a little kickback. And it is queernica.co, not com.co. QUEERENCIA.co. So yeah, they work with a lot of pride organizations and support LGBTQ initiatives, and they sell cool queer apparel stuff. So if you want to go there and use our link, our code, or you could use TVADs, I guess, you will get a discount. We will get a little kickback, and a Black queer owned business that is very tangentially associated with a member of our community will get some custom, and you'll get a cool shirt.
So what's the code on that? WOTS.
One more time, that code is
WOTS.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, in other news, like I said at the end of the last recording, which Seth, again, you didn't hear because you were off making yourself tea or something, and I just recorded something.
Oh, that's right. I had to use the restroom.
Yeah, and then I put it at, well, it was tea out. I mean, but I also kind of soft launched the fact that I'm if you guys want to talk podcast editing in a serious way, I'm doing that Fox and Raven Media is becoming something more in my imagination. So,
I mean, at this point, you are editing for 4-ish podcasts, only 2 of which we are producing.
3.
Right? Like, well, I'm going to count Broken Earth in there.
No, you cannot count a project. I haven't worked on it over a year. That's unacceptable. No.
Okay,
but yes, I'm really enjoying being a podcast production kind of person, and I'm deciding I want to make Fox and Raven Media a bigger production thing. So if you have some half-baked little thing that you don't think is serious and no one would take you seriously about, but you think that we're your friends, you should hit us up, because I'm bouncing a million ideas around in my head. So I'm going to become a media mogul. It's the plan. Help me make my plan.
Yeah. If you have a podcast that you want to take off and you have someone to talk to, but you're not sure where to go from there, Aradia is a good person to talk to, because she knows how to do everything beyond the finding. You gotta come up with an idea. That's the thing about podcasting. You gotta come with an idea and someone to talk to, or some way to be really good at monologuing. But if you can produce content and you need someone to edit that down into something that sounds good, Aradia is your girl. Trust me. I come on this podcast and say some absolutely disjointed statements that turn out pretty good when the podcast comes out, and that is all editing.
I love producing content. It's a very enjoyable thing to me to make people sound the way that they want to sound. And I am working on trying to figure out how to teach this in a more effective way, but video editing, it turns out, is really hard. Video creation and editing is difficult. So someday I'll be able to point you to a cool YouTube playlist of how I do all my stuff spelled out. But until then, you know where to find me in Discord. You know what our email address is. So yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it. All right, that's the end of my unscheduled and absolutely disjointed public service announcements.
All right, have fun editing that.
I'm just going to delete all of it.
Yeah. Depending on your mood.
Yeah.
All right, stopping recording. Okay, recording is on. And I'm getting a question as to why I don't have a beard. That was for Watt Idol.
Dun, dun, dun.
And to give you just a hint, that should help you figure out at least something about why I couldn't have a beard for the Watt Idol.
So, for visual description's sake, there was a hat, and it had a brim, and there was a ribbon wrapped around it, and it was pink.
And I don't have a beard. So yeah, Watt Idol. The song is done. All the raw footage is recorded and has been imported into iMovie, which is where I'll be doing my editing. I have 39 minutes to cut down to 3, and basically 24 hours in which to get that done before I have to go back to work. So I can make some final touches on it over the next 2 days. Yeah, pretty much have to get it done in the next 24 hours. So this will be an interesting, we'll see how rough the cut is that gets submitted. But I think we've got a lot of interesting material, and the song is great, and we'll see how far we go.
I got to see some of the raw footage, and I am confident that you were going to be able to cut together a respectably nonsensical and delightful video to go with the audio. And I'm really excited to see what we very asynchronously collaborated to make this year.
Right. So last year we really got together and did it sort of every step together. This year, Aradia pretty much wrote and recorded it without any involvement from me, and sent me the finished MP3 and said, okay, now you need to make a video. And either you can do some artwork with some text, or you can actually put something together. And so, yeah, I went ahead and got my girlfriend to dress up as Jolene, and I'm dressed up as Matt, and we made some video content in our house, in our backyard, and hopefully it works.
There's even some Timber cameos.
There are definitely, well, yeah, we'll see how many of those make it in.
At least half of Timber.
Yeah.
I saw his butt in a whole lot of shots.
There's a bunch of times where he sort of squeezes in. I'm probably going to do some cropping, so some of that might not end up in the final shot, but yeah, I didn't specifically include him.
Yeah, but yeah, everyone make sure to go and vote in the preliminary voting. That's going to be on the 12th. That is next Wednesday. Not on Tuesday. I thought originally it was going to be on Tuesday, but no, they're doing it on the 12th, which is a Wednesday of next week. And then they might do a second round on the following Thursday, the 13th, if they get enough submissions, which they probably will. Is probably going to be a Sanderlanche right there at the end.
Yeah.
I think they've got like
36.
Yeah. So I suspect that they're probably going to double that just because I know how people are, right? Last minute work is a thing. And I've seen lots of people on Twitter like giving progress reports and they aren't done yet. So there might be a second round of preliminary voting on the 13th. And then the actual event with the final voting is going to be, I believe, on the 15th, which is Saturday. And that's going to be like at noon Eastern. Like it's going to be a long, long event. So everyone stay tuned.
Why? Just because there's going to be 100 3-minute songs?
Something like that.
It just keeps getting more popular. They're going to have to do something to limit the entries at some point, or just like, you know, stick an IV into the innkeeper and put him on a, you know, catheter so he can just go for like 24 hours straight.
Yeah, it's quite the event. I'm very excited about it. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I've been retweeting everything that I can find about it as it goes. I'll definitely make sure to post it in the Discord repeatedly as we get closer to the date. I do not want any of you to miss it. It's going to be an amazing adventure. Like, ignore our video. It's fine. Also, definitely vote for our video, please. But like, all the art is going to be so amazing. You will not see a better collection of free entertainment anywhere else.
And this episode will drop, right? Like the day before it happens.
This episode will drop on Thursday, the 13th. So it will be dropping right before the final voting, but the day after the preliminary voting.
Okay.
Maybe the day of the second preliminary voting. If you're listening to this on the day that it drops, there is probably preliminary voting round 2 tonight.
And final voting tomorrow.
On Dusty Wheel. And then final voting on Saturday, this coming Saturday. So clear your schedules, people. Seriously. You don't want to miss this. And you don't want to stack the votes in our favor. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
God, you know, I'm not going to be able to watch any of it live. I'm working the entire time.
No!
All, like from Thursday to Saturday, that's my work schedule. That's why we record on Tuesday.
Is Never at least not working?
I don't know, but there's like
and she wouldn't be able...
Yeah. But, what time does it go till?
I have no idea. I mean, well, on the final one... I have no idea. They're starting it, I believe, at noon Eastern.
Okay, yeah.
So they're planning for it to be a several-hour event.
Yeah, but it would have to go longer than 3 hours for me to be able to watch any of it. So I'll just have to go back and watch it later.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, I will be there blowing up the chat for both of us.
I mean, there may be times during the week where I can sneak in an earbud and sort of listen to it on breaks or, you know, when things are slow.
You can just watch the chat and just vote for like either one. Just that way there's another vote. Like, it doesn't even matter which one because everyone deserves to win. So
so I'll do my best. So I will definitely try. I may just ask my buddies to cover for me. We'll see.
Yeah, I definitely already told Brandon, like, just so you know, I'm not going to be available, like, physically or emotionally at all for these particular, like I'm just going to be gone. That's just what it is. That Saturday, I'm booked. And then I'm going to be, like, absolutely, like, last year, I literally had, like, a serotonin crash the next day.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
After Wa Idol. Like, I was depressed. Like,
So
I spent
much.
all my happy chemicals on that. Like, I need a recovery day after. And not because, like, I was disappointed, just because I had literally cranked every last happy chemical out of my brain and was just exhausted and depleted. But yeah, everyone go participate in that because we made a really cool song. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I always expect to be, like, by far and away the least talented, and then I'm even less talented than I thought I was in the face of how talented this fandom is. It's truly absurd. Oh, yeah. Question in chat about how long the edit is. So I do have the ability to do a 24 turnaround edit on episodes, and I prefer to. But when I give myself that extra week so that I actually have 9 days of turnaround, it allows for more flexibility in my schedule, which means that I don't end up hating my job quite as much. Especially for our episodes, because they're long.
Yeah, they're long, and you have to edit them. And it's like, if you have to get it done within 24 hours, generally... You know, and especially what I find is if you edit something the day after you record it, it's actually a lot harder. If you wait a couple of days, you can look at things much more objectively and be like, okay, this part was good, that part was bad, as opposed to the next day when you're like, oh, that's just embarrassing.
I actually like to do it the next day, but I really just don't hear what we're saying. It's just a very mechanical, automatic, like autopilot kind of process at this point.
There is some of that. Yeah, totally. Once you've known it long enough. But
definitely I can tell like what my mood is by how my edit style is. Like if I'm cranky, I am in there with a freaking like machete, just like hacking shit out, like whole sections, just like, nope, that was all trash. Gone. If days when I'm in a really good mood, I'm in there like polishing stuff, making it all nice. Other days I'm just like, nah, the entire tangent's gone. Fuck it. Not even putting it at the end. It's just into the ether.
It's just gone. That was bullshit. Yeah, well, that doesn't even need to be in there. That's junk.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
Yep. Oh yeah, someone was gushing on our parody from last year. I think our parody was like obviously one of the ones that we had a lot of fun making it because we were kind of like, we're not fucking video experts, or audio experts. We're just here to have a good
makes me
time.
Cringe so bad. I hate myself on video. I hate it so much.
But it looks like we're having fun, which we were.
Yeah,
it just looks like it too, you know. Yeah. And so it's fun to put that out, and I hope that we carry over some of that today. I think to this year, I think me and Never had a lot of fun. Like we got done and we were like, that was just a ton of fun making that video and like setting up all the little tidbits that were parts of it and the little jokes and everything like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I totally loved our parody. I think it got a lot of well-deserved praise. It's just an unreasonably talented fandom.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Just so unreasonable. And everyone's so supportive. So supportive. I don't know what to do with all the support. Like, I'm supportive to other people, but it is unacceptable for people to be supportive of me. I do not like it.
So support us on Patreon. Go ahead. Fox and Raven Media. We are slowly expanding to become a media empire. We will bring you all sorts of audio content from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Woo!
I mean, 5 years coming up. Right? No, are we coming up on year 6 of the podcast?
I've been saying it 5 years for a long time now, so we might be coming up on year 6.
Because again, April 21st is our anniversary.
Oh, shit. Well, that would be this month.
That would be this month. That would be
wow.
in about 2 weeks.
We should make ourselves like cupcakes or something.
But yeah, let's see. Jedi Pants is confirming that we did start April 21st, 2017. So this podcast has been going for 6 years with rarely a week missed and many, many times more than, we're coming up on 500 episodes in 6 years.
Yeah. And I found you guys like around episode 30. I found you summer, I think, summer or fall of 2017. I distinctly remembered that it was very warm when I was listening through the first episodes and being like, fuck, I gotta write them an email now. God damn it.
You've been involved from very, very early on in this podcast for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's like I've only been doing the recordings for a couple of years, but like I've been there since before you hit triple digits.
Right. And certainly giving us a lot of the feedback that we're using on the podcast, even in the early days. Yeah.
Right. I forced myself into the podcast very early. I didn't realize it was rude to text a comment to every single thing you said in the live recording chat. I just did that. Didn't realize it was rude.
And now when people do it, what do you feel?
I'm just like, wow, chat moves fast. And I'm like, fuck, I was blowing chat up so hard. Like, it's a wonder they didn't, like, message me and tell me to shut the fuck up. Like, god damn, I was annoying.
I never thought that. Because, well, oh god, especially in the beginning, just having anyone, like, to be there to respond to the stuff you said was, like, amazing. I was just like, wow, someone's listening and caring, and it was really cool in the beginning to have people there, and it still is. I mean, it's not like I'm any less excited when I look in the chat and I see, the 10 to 15 people that show up here every week. I'm always very excited to see those people. It just makes me so happy that people are going to take time out of their day to come to a live event out of this, and then to see the download numbers that people are still listening to the episode every week and really seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, it's so funny too, because this was the first podcast I ever got into listening to, like, period. Like, I just wasn't a podcast listener. Like, it just wasn't a thing. I had no idea what podcasts were, what standards for podcasts were, what fandoms were. I had never met a fandom. I didn't know fandoms were a thing you could look up. Like, this was my entry point to so many things.
Zool was saying it was the same thing for her, which is awesome. And I kind of want to say it was the same thing for Michael Kramer and Kate Redding.
Yeah, it was. It was. Entry point into the fandom. Yeah.
One of the things I really, really do think that we did is we were certainly not the grandfathers of the modern social media, because those people have been out there for a long time. Sure, yeah. The Dragon Mounts, the Matt Hatches, but we might be the fathers of the current parents of, let's say parents instead of fathers, parents of the current generation of podcasts, because a lot of the current generation podcasts looked at what we were doing and said, hey, I think I can do that too. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, if these, or especially the ones that are like read through, whether it's first time read through or spoiler read through or stuff like that. And then some of them, took that concept and went further with it. But I'm very proud of the 6 years that we've been doing this. And I think that's a long time to be producing content on a weekly basis and to still have the support of the community out there and still be able to do this on a very regular basis. I mean, we are incredibly good at getting content out on a schedule. And it might just be the little bit of neurodivergency we've got, where it's like we do nothing else. We cannot miss our deadlines.
I can only miss deadlines on projects that I'm doing solo. If I'm doing it with someone else, it will be on time. And
that's why this works so well. Neither one of us could do this on our own on a regular basis by any means. No.
No. Mm-hmm. It's a dynamo process.
It's just fueled by guilt of not letting the other person down.
It is. And it's amazing how many people I'm seeing in chat are being like, yeah, also this was first podcast, first entry point to fandom. Like, it's amazing how much we built this weird little thing out of a bunch of people who didn't know how things were quote unquote supposed to work.
Right.
And now we've like set a standard. Like, there's so many podcasts and servers and interactions I see that it's like, oh, I recognize those people from our space. I recognize those maneuvers from our space. I recognize those conversations from our space, those conventions from our space. Like, it's just like, yeah, it does feel like we're this little branching point where a bunch of people were like, let's build on that. And it's like, I think we set some really good seeds because there's nothing but pleasantness for all the eye to see where I'm sitting.
And some of that might be just convergent evolution, covalent. No, there's a word
convergent,
for that.
Yeah, convergent.
Convergent. That just, two groups trying to produce content are going to find Discord. They're going to find Patreon. They're going to, but it's possible that maybe by doing it all first, there was a lot of people who went out there and said, hey, this is how they do it and it works. Maybe we should include something like that. And there were certainly growing pains, right? I'm not going to say there weren't a bunch of things we did wrong or a bunch of things we had to restructure once we got above a certain size, because we never anticipated getting very big. And, I've screwed up some of those things, which some people can attest to.
And now we've got so much cumulative experience that I am like wanting to make a podcast about podcasts.
Right.
Like, it's a very iterative process.
You can't do this for 6 years, without having some sort of opinions about how it should be done.
Yeah. And like, again, with the neurodivergence, like once I figure out how to optimize something to work, it's like, this is very efficient. I really want to share this with people because I'm now very proud of this thing I've crafted. It's like, I do it the same every time. Yeah, I need a mic recommendation too. I need to get a new mic.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I did all my mic research 6 years ago. I mean, it's super outdated. I've been using the same mic for all this time. I need to do some research and I need a mic recommendation if we're going to upgrade.
Yeah. We should ask TVAD because I love their sound. Their sound is really good, all three of them.
Okay.
We should ask, because I bet they don't all have the same mic. So that would be 3 options that we could look at.
What I hate is when I love somebody's sound and they tell me the mic and they're like, oh, yeah, I've got the Blue Yeti. I'm like, well, that's fuck.
Yeah.
It's not going to make my sound any better. That's what I've got, you know? So it's all about room treatment and vocal range and stuff like that.
And Blue Yetis are not as good as everyone says they are.
No, they're not. They're not. It's a mid-tier mic at best. It's just, I think for the era they were coming out in, they were good for the price.
Sure, but now it's like a joke amongst podcast editors. Like, oh God, another Blue Yeti. Shocker.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I'll probably be going for like a Sennheiser or something, just brand wise.
And I'm like, part of me is like, well, whatever you buy, I'm probably just going to buy one as well so that we match.
That makes sense.
And it's just like, I haven't spent money on a mic in so long. It's like, I might as well just fork some over. And if I have to get a receiver, I'll get a receiver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's research that I keep meaning to get around to doing. I've poked at it a little bit. I have the vaguest idea of the research questions I need to dig into, but I haven't actually done that yet because...
The other thing we should really do is start looking at getting some new artwork. Because once we're done with Crossroads of Twilight and the cleansing, that big bubble won't necessarily be relevant. We need to get a final battle artwork going.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
What if I don't know if I can get Leah to do it again. It's been a while since I've talked to her, and I don't think she's really doing as much art, but I can ask her if she wants to do another one.
I mean, ours is pretty, but it is going to be outdated, but it's really pretty.
Yeah, I know it throws people off to change, but it is, the first one was really relevant to the beginning of the series because it was all about Rudian and going through the Terangrial. And then the next one sort of led up to the cleansing. And then, yeah, I really would love to have a last battle themed one.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Timber's here.
Hi, Timber.
Don't know if you can hear that.
Oh, yeah.
He just got home from work. Yeah. Timber, come here.
Yeah, there's the
Hi,
key
buddy,
jingle and
here.
then there's the tag jingle.
That's definitely tag jingle. Oh, come here, buddy. Lift him up. Oh, there he is.
Be on camera.
Oh. There we go.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I want to get down. Like, this is too much.
No, but everyone on the internet wants to see you.
Timber, what's that?
Oh,
He's like, I don't know, it's nothing. But,
You're right.
Now you look at the camera. Okay, hop on down. Good boy. Okay, get out of here.
he just had to come home and say hi and interrupt you.
He does. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
Support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?